Okay, so the first one is called the emitter, the second one the base, and the third one is the collector. EBC, I came up with a quick way of how to remember that. Everybody's cool. EBC, emitter, base, and collector. Okay. So, let's keep going. Two types of bipolar junction transistors, the NPN type and the PNP type. Okay, and we've heard the N-type material, the P-type material, that's what a transistor is made up of. You've got two kinds, one is called an NPN and the other one is called a PNP. So, let's look at the two types. The first one, the NPN, this is the schematic symbol of the NPN, where you have the collector, the emitter, and the base. The base is shown in the middle, okay? And the emitter is shown with the arrow. We'll come back to that in a minute. But first, let's look at this middle picture. You have an N-type material, P-type material, and an N-type material. So that's why it's called NPN. And in the middle is the P-type, which is where the base is connected. So the base is a small region, okay? It's a thin region, lightly doped, and you have N-types on either side of it. So, if you look carefully at it, there are two junctions. There's the base to collector junction, right here, PN, and there's the base to emitter junction, another PN. So it's like the diode, where we have the P-type and the N-type, and you bring them together, and you have a PN junction. That's what a diode is. And here we have two PN junctions. So if we look at this PN junction here, it looks like a base to collector diode right here. And if you look at this PN junction between the base and the emitter, then you see another PN junction or another diode. So this is a way of understanding the NPN type of configuration of this type of a diode or transistor. Okay, and this is the schematic. The schematic looks like a flat line, and then you show two lines and an arrow, and to differentiate the two, we put the arrow on the emitter. The other one is the collector, the one in the middle is the base. And when the arrow is pointing out, we call that the NPN type. So now let's look at the second kind, the PNP. So here's the PNP. The PNP looks the same as the NPN, except now the arrow is pointing in. We still have the base, we still have the collector, we have the emitter. So let's look at how it's manufactured. You've got a small region in the middle of the N-type material. We've talked about the N-type and the P-type, right? The P-type means that we have a lack of electrons, and N-type means we have an abundance of electrons. So on either side, we've got the P-type material, sandwiched in between is the N-type material. And that's where the base is connected. We've got collector on one end, emitter on the other end. Again, two PN junctions. One right here, PN, between the collector and the base. Collector and the base. There's my PN junction, which is represented with a diode. Another one between the emitter and the base, PN junction. There's the representation of that PN junction with a diode. Notice that in the previous case, the diodes were pointing in opposite direction. Now we have okay, so that's the difference between the NPN and the PNP. So Now, the schematic of the PNP is base in the middle, collector, emitter, but on the emitter, we show the arrow now pointing in. That's the difference between the two. So, let's keep going. Let's say we want to test one of these transistors. Okay? So, one of the things you'll be doing for the lab, for lab number 7, is to test the transistor as pre-lab before you come to the lab. And the way you're going to test it is by testing these PN junctions. So in this case, what you will do is you will take a multimeter and you will connect the red lead on the base. So this is NPN, base, collector, emitter. So you will take a multimeter and you will connect the red lead on the base and the black lead on the emitter. You have a PN junction and you read 0.7. You'll do the same thing, red lead on the base, black lead on the collector, and you have another PN junction, 0.7. But if you put a red lead at the collector and a black lead at the emitter, now you're measuring from end to end. You will not get any reading. So if you get the following information, okay, 0.7, 0.7, and no reading, that means that your transistor is good. But if you have a damaged transistor, then you will not get that information. So, from the base to the emitter, about 0.7, this way. From the base to the collector, 0.7. But between the collector and the emitter, it's basically an open. So that's one way of testing a transistor with a multimeter for those two PN junctions that are in that transistor. So that's the NPN. And it would be the same for a PNP.